So good evening, everybody, inside Zoom and outside of Zoom in our Facebook group. Welcome to tonight's webinar. We are going to, this is what we call the Birders Kapihan, the public sessions. So we do this every month, once a month, every third Saturday. So abangan nyo yung activities namin. For today, this is our third public kapihan, the Birders Kapihan, the public session. And we are talking about yung title na nakikita nyo sa likod ng ibang mga kasama ko, Behind the Bins, Birding Preps and Etiquette. Okay, how to prepare and also, proper behavior during birding. Last time we had a Q&A and it was very successful and we wanted to do another one. But because restrictions now are easing, we felt na, sige, as a preparatory thing, let's talk about what we do before we bird, during the actual birding activity, and after. Yan. Kasi meron kaming mga ginagawa talaga doon. So tonight, we'd like to share that with you. So, kanya-kanyang introducing na lang. There will be 3 people speaking tonight. After we're done, we can have a Q&A. Please feel free to ask your questions. Ha? Huwag na kayong mahiya. Kasi pagkakataon na ito para matuto tayong lahat. And we might also learn something from you. Like we were just told somebody wants to document that they're okay, great. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Gwen. I've been with the club since 2016. So ang topic ko for today, I will talk about the pre-birding. Okay? So I prepared a video para siguradong mas maayos medyo ang pagka... Alright. So let me just share my part. Here's the first part. Okay.
Okay, let me talk about preparing for a bird trip, the study part. Okay, before we talk about ano yung dadalhin, ito muna yung aral part. Okay, what does that mean? So first of all, you have to check what will the weather be on that day. You want good weather, you want it to be conducive to birding, right? Although pag medyo umambon, may mga ibon naman na naliligo sa ulan. So lumalabas naman sila. But of course, mas maganda pag maaraw. Okay, so check the weather for that day, conducive ba to birding or not. Of course, if you join a guided trip, let's say by the bird club, we will decide it already for you. Second is, we also check anong oras ang sunrise. Kasi gusto mong salubungin yung mga ibon eh. Siyempre, pag sunrise, paglabas ng araw, lalabas na sila, kumakanta, naghanap ng pagkain, then they'll be more visible. So, and you want good light, to see them, to take some pictures. So, we check also sunrise. However, pwede rin mag-birding sa hapon. Let's say around 4, 5, ganon. Kasi twice sila lumalabas yan para maghanap ng food. So, pwede ka mag-morning birding, mag-afternoon. Ako, personally, I prefer morning. And then, pagka water birds naman, you also check the tides. So natuto ako mag-Google ng tide chart para makita ko high tide ba or low tide. Siyempre, low tide, mas maraming ibon. Pero may advantage din kasi minsan pagka high tide, mas konti yung lugar na nakalitaw, right? So the birds are more concentrated in those little islands. Medyo mas may kita. Pag low tide, naka-spread out sila. So parehong may advantage, disadvantage. Then just bird in both high tide and low tide. And then, okay, another important thing, aralin nyo muna ano yung mga birds in the area. Let's say mag-bird kayo sa UP Diliman. Okay, you can Google. People have blogs, may mga kung ano-ano na pinapakita na dun what are the birds that were seen in that area. Or you can use eBird, and this will be discussed later. Okay, this app will be discussed later by one of my co-birders. So, yan ang mga study preparations that you have to do before you go birding. Or, in the beginning, ako, ayaw kong gawin kasi gusto kong surprise. Like, kung ano na lang makita ko. Pwede rin yun. So, it's up to you. But, it's much better if you study it. Para pagkita mo ng ibon, and then with all conditions proper, diba, ma-maximize mo yung bird trip. Okay? So, this is the study part of preparing for birding.
So, ano muna yan? Mag-aaral. Now, let me just add something that I forgot. We have to agree on the time and the place beforehand with your mga kasama. Alam nyo kami, sa birding, mas importante yung ibon kaysa kaibigan or mga samahan. So, the birds won't wait. Kaya pag sinabing na ganitong oras we bird, we have to go. So pag hindi ka umabot on time, iwan ka. Yun ha? Sorry. Okay, so next, let me share naman, the other thing is what to bring. Okay? So kasi kanina is ano yung aaralin natin eh. Now, ano yung dadalhin natin? Okay? Okay, where is, all right, here you go.
Okay, now after the aral and the research, now we go to what to bring. Ano ngayon ang dadalhin? So ano i-prepare mo? Okay? For the next day. So ang importanteng number one rule, you have to pack light. Okay? Huwag mabigat kasi maglalakad tayo eh. Minsan talagang really long distances, mag-hike to see the birds. So kailangan magaan lang, talagang pack light ka lang.
Naku, yung speaker nyo na yan na si Gwen, alam nyo ba? First time ko siyang na-meet. Mag-birding kami for just a day. Maleta ang kanyang dala. Natatawa nga ako noon eh. But of course, I kept it to myself. Pero look at her now. She's now a speaker. And I'm sure she has learned.
Binuking ako ah. May eksena pa itong kasama ko. Well, yeah. Ang dala ko talaga nun eh, maleta. Kasi di ko nga alam nun eh. Ayan oh, ganyan yung dala ko. Kaya may gulong yan. Okay, but now, natuto na ako. I already know. Okay? Ito na. Mula dyan sa maletang yan, ito na lang. Yan. A belt bag. Okay? In order ko sa Shopee. Okay? Everything that I need is here. Now, of course, the binoculars, kung may sarili ka na okay, pero you know, like if you join our guided tour sa club, nagpapahiram kami. Okay? We rent it out. Ngayon, I have to say that, of course, we are not encouraging birding right now. Birding right now, we bird at our own risk. Okay? But for now, you know, tigil muna ang guided trips namin. But it's good to know how to prepare for it, what to do during birding and after, you know, for future reference. Okay? So, itong binoculars, suot ko na. Kumbaga, ayan o, may harness ako. So, suot ko na siya. Okay? Para hindi na ito kasama sa ilalagay sa bag. Kasi nga backpack ang dala ko. So, here. Not backpack, sorry. A belt bag. So, this is my belt bag. Okay? Now, what goes in my belt bag? Alright. Pagkagising ko sa umaga, kasi ang birding kadalasan is madaling araw, meron na akong, I've always wanted to do this when I watch those makeup videos. Ito. I always want to put on a sunscreen. Okay? Kailangan naka-sunblock tayo. Okay? So, ano kaya yan? Hindi ko na ito dinadala. Basta, I put it on my face already and my arms. Okay, so what do I pack? Insect repellent ha, kailangan to. Especially when we go to the forests, tapos medyo malamok. Okay? And of course, we need our alcohol. And I have my tissue. Mask, of course. Tapos meron akong ganito, may paypay ako kasi pag mainit. Then, I bring a small umbrella, okay? And make sure that the color is gray or neutral or brown because you don't want to scare the birds, diba? Our outfits must be earth colors, okay? Hindi pwede ang bright and hindi pwede ang white. Okay, then, either you wear long sleeves or you buy these arm sleeves. Isusuot na lang. So this goes also in my bag. Now, for my cap, it's either I wear it already or I can put it also in my bag. Then, well, I'll need my reading glasses. Okay, that goes inside the bag. Now, some people, they bring extra na t-shirt, extra na palet pag pinawisan. Pero tinatamad na ako, saka travel light na ako ngayon eh. So, tuwalya na lang. Punas-punas na lang ng pawis. Okay? So, pasok yun sa bag. Then, of course, we would need water. Ngayon ako, I don't want to drink a lot of water because I don't want to keep going to pee and then there's no place. Except, yun nga, doon na lang sa behind the payong, you know, on the ground. So I just bring a small container na may water. And I love these carabiners. Okay, saan ko kinakabit yan. So, pasok din sa bag. And of course, you want some snacks. Minsan kasi wala tayong kumain. So you can bring whatever, but I bring like Mentos for candy, I bring pita, and I bring kasoy. Nuts are good, you know, pag medyo gutom ka na. So yan, they all go into my belt bag. And then, well, gusto ko rin may Vicks akong dala. Saka meron akong mga insect creams ko just in case na lang may kagat or whatever. Or if you have medicines that you take, dalhin nyo na rin yung gamot nyo. Okay. Then, oh, di ba? Kasyang-kasya. Hindi na maleta ngayon. And notebook and a ball pen. Okay, para saan? Well, I'll take down notes kung ano yung nakita ko kasi baka makalimutan. Also is if there's something that you see and you cannot identify, but you know, isulat mo, oy, it has yellow legs, it has red beak, you know, the eyes are black, and it has a white eye ring. So at least malilista mo. So it's good to have a pen and a notebook. Okay? Yun lang. Eto na. Now, let me ask my co-burgers to show a picture of what things go in their bag. Ano yung parang yung mga celebrities, kasi gusto natin tingnan kung anong laman ng nila, bag nila. So in our case, ano bang laman ng mga bag ng mga ibang co-burgers ko? It might be different from what I have. So let's take a look.
So very briefly, I'm gonna show you. These are some of the photos that yung mga dala ng mga kasama kong birders. So ito, this is Janina, and this is what she brings. Sobra namang konti ito. Ang liit naman ng bag niya. But this is what she brings. And then, yung ibang mga
Nalit namin... na tao rin naman si Janina.
O eto, anong tao ito?
Janina.
This one. O, meron pang
Yan, hardcore
may
birder
dagger
yan.
pa. Yan. Ito medyo na to. Siyempre, medyo level up. Okay? This is from, okay, naman to? Ternel. Andiyan na ba si Ternel? Wala. So this is what he brings. Okay, he has like this tuwalya ba ito, umbrella, thermos. Of course, there's the notebook. Okay, and meron siyang may kutsilyo pa siya. Alright, ano ba itong nasa gitna? Oh, walking stick o tripod? Oh, tripod. Okay, and then this one is by, from John. So ito naman yung sa kanya, meron siyang scarf. Siyempre may phone, there's the ball pen and the notebook. Laging meron his glasses, his thermos. Pero ano ba ang talagang super basic? Lalo na pag dyan ka lang naman sa labas or outside your office or outside your home. Then all you need really are your binoculars, the notebook, and the ball pen. Top 3. Okay? But then the phone, of course, we carry our phone always with us. So sama na din siya. But this is really all you need. Okay? Kaya it's just really very, very simple. Okay? So, I think I've said everything that needs to be said for pre-birding. So now we go to our during the birding. Okay, take it away, Karen.
Hi. Thank you, Gwen, for the pre-birding tips. So, I'm ready to go birding now. Sinunod ko yung mga tips ni Gwen. So, I'm wearing nature colored shirt. I have my hat kasi ang init. Mahirap makita sa binoculars. So anyway, I'll just share my slide and I'm gonna give some tips and etiquettes about during bird watching trips. So, disabled.
Oh, sorry. Let me take care of that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
So share. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, tips and etiquette during birding trips. By the way, right now, the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines is not organizing any guided trips because, we're in pandemic, community quarantine. So these are just in preparation of the time that we're able to go out. In the meantime, some people go out at their own risk, but always follow the regulations about social distancing, wearing masks, things like that if you're going out. Otherwise, sa bahay na lang tayo mag-bird watching. So, okay. So now that we follow the tips by Gwen, what do we do when we go to our birding location on time because we're not left behind? First and foremost, you have to make your observations and take notes using the top 3 things that Gwen mentioned. The notebook, of course, yung binoculars to observe, and then notebook, pen, and your bird guide. There's a term called JIZ. So this is a shortcut for general impression, size, and shape. So it will help you, describe the birds that you've seen, and as well as take note of the habitat and behavior. So I have 3 photos here. I intentionally chose photos with small images of the birds because in real life, usually you won't see them very close. That's why you need binoculars. So from afar, you'd be able to determine the general impression of the bird. So what's the relative size? How long is the neck? What's the color? What's the color of the bill, the legs? Where is it located? Is it by the coastal area? Is it flying high? Like this one is a Bermini kite in the middle. The left one is an eastern reef egret. And then on the right, many backyard bird watchers have been seeing these 2 birds, the black-naped oriole, the one with the yellow, and the Asian glossy starling. So you can see they're in different habitats. So it would give you an idea what species of bird that is. Okay, so don't forget Jizz. Kasi GISS, when you say it's Jizz, parang ganun. Okay, now after you've made your observations, so you have to list them down so you won't forget. You cannot memorize all the birds, especially when you go to a forest, coastal areas. There's so many that you may be able to see. So this is a picture of my notebook. I have several small notebooks because it's easy to write in a small notebook. But my notes are not the best. As you can see, you can hardly read my penmanship. So aside from listing the names using your guidebook, so, or if you're very familiar, then top of mind, you know what they are. So you can use the guidebook to know what birds you were able to observe. So you write it down and you count as best as you can. And if you can identify, like if it's a male or a female with the help of your guide or with the more experienced birders with you, male or female, juvenile, and if it's heard only, bird watching is not just watching, it's also listening to bird calls. So you can list it, even if you didn't see a bird, but you heard it and you were able to identify it through a distinct call, then you can also list it as HO or heard only. So that's not the best notes, but we can't be perfect, right? At least you have notes. And also at the end of a birding trip, we collate our notes, we compare, and then we have one whole list for if you're in a group. And because you have your pen and your notebook, and so if you have your coloring materials, you can also sketch if you can. So this one is a very special sketch. My sketches are not the greatest. There are more artistic members of our club, but mine is very simple. But I was able to write down the most important characteristics of this special bird I saw. So it was an owl, but I wasn't sure because I didn't have binoculars. I was at my office compound. I didn't have a binocular, so I was relying on my naked eye. But I took these important notes like the color of the eyes, the relative size, the streaks, the shape of the mouth, the nostrils, etc. And I was able to confirm by calling a friend that, can you check Kennedy Guide? And because of my sketch, we were able to identify that it's a Philippine eagle owl in Quezon City. So So it's not really required to have your camera, although I have, and it's useful, especially for documentation. But it's really optional for bird watching. So the main equipment really is your binoculars. So in the photo on the left, you have your very professional looking um, photographers. So it's a different skill really. And on the right, it's my photo. It's not like the best, but it's good enough for me, for my enjoyment, for my documentation. And that's the sketch. That's the sketch of this bird. Hindi siya kamukha, di ba? But it's good enough for me, for my records, and I was able to identify the bird using my sketch and my guide po. Okay? And of course, aside from, observing the birds, taking down their details, their sketch, taking a photograph, we have to also observe proper behavior. And number one is keep distance from the birds. We cannot, go there and disturb them just to get the perfect photo or just to make sure that you see it. This hobby is enjoying nature the way nature is. So sometimes you won't be able to see it. That's the way it is. That's nature. That's the nature of nature watching. And with avoiding disturbance is keeping the noise down. Now we have uh, some birders who really get so excited. Oh my God, it's a lifer. Meaning, it's the first time to see this bird, and so excited, sumisigaw, shouting. But others were like, shh, because that might disturb the bird. So just, minimize your noise so that you don't, flush the bird or disturb the bird. So in this photo, usually a common way to go bird watching is along the road. So we just stay on the road and don't go in, because then that might, disrupt the birds hiding behind the vegetation. And of course, bird watching is generally it can be a group activity generally, but it can be a solo activity. But I recommend, having some people around with you, because especially if you're going to, remote places, you don't want to be alone. But you have to make sure to give others a chance to see the birds, because, you know, if you're happy to see it, I'm sure everybody else will see it. So you can give directions to your companion if they can see it. Give specific instructions. I've experienced this with some, usually some local guides would say, ayun, dun sa puno, yun, yung may kulay dilaw na dahon. So, parang, tatlo silang puno na may dilaw na dahon. So you can use specific details like the tree on my 12 o'clock. You can use the directions using yung time, yung dial. Like on my 12 o'clock, there's a tree with yellow leaves. To the right, there's another thin tree. There's a Y-shaped branch in the middle. So that will really help your companion see what you're seeing. So give chance to others. Which brings me to another equipment used for bird watching, and that is shared by the group. So it's a spotting scope. It's like a telescope, where telescope use it to see stars, sky, night sky. Spotting scope is usually used for wildlife, so for bird watching. Now, it's a shared equipment. So it's usually, everyone in the group will get to have a look whenever there's a bird spotted. Now here, number one, whoever is in charge should adjust the height. Because if it's too high and like I'm short, I won't be able to have a good look, and I might, shake it and lose the bird spotted. So now once it's spotted the bird, if you're taking a look, don't move it, because then the others after you might not be able to see it. So don't move it, and take a peek as quickly as you can so that you give chance to others. Okay. And of course, whenever you go out, as with any other outdoor activity, leave no trace. Don't, leave your trash behind yung mga snacks, just, keep them in your pockets. If there's no trash bins, make sure that, however you saw the place, it should be the same or better if you can take out the trash. And no trespassing. Because sometimes you can get so excited to see a bird and then it flew to the inside the fence of a house. Of course, you would. I mean, common sense, but sometimes you get so excited. So don't trespass. Always ask permission if you really want to go inside the fence of somebody's house. And a lot of times, whenever we go out birding, say coastal area or like a forest edge, there are people passing by, especially kids, wanting to have a look at the spotting scope, asking, what are you looking at? So, you can share knowledge with others, show them the birds in the guidebook, and also we can take knowledge from them because locals know the local name, the habits, and things like that. And so it's an exchange of knowledge. But again, we're in a pandemic, so extra careful if you're going out, social distancing, and you know the drill. Be aware of surroundings. Of course, when you're with a group, don't leave anyone behind, especially if you're in a trail. Take a notice of the weather, even if you haven't finished your designated time for bird watching, but you know that, oh, it's going to rain. It's going to take a while to go back to your vehicle or to the town. You have to adjust. Um, because then you have to manage your expectations. Again, you hope for the best to see the birds in the area, but sometimes things happen. Sometimes the birds don't show up. Sometimes the weather changes, suddenly rains, you have to wait it out. So, don't be too stressed and just, manage your expectations. And last but not the least, enjoy. So it's an activity to enjoy with your friends, to share your love and enjoyment for birds and nature. So, relax and don't forget to enjoy. So that's it. Later, if you have questions, we have Q&A. I'll turn you over now to Jobs, who will discuss the post birding.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Oh, yeah, so I'll be discussing yung um, after part, okay? Ang daming product name dropping ni Gwen. Tatry ko talunin, okay? So, uh, let me share my screen. So, after birding, um, habang kumakain kayo ng Skyflakes or ng tita na mayroong cheese whiz, hindi makita yung sign ko. Ayan. Or habang humihigop ng Nescafe 3-in-1 or ng Gold Eagle beer. Okay, seriously, kidding aside, tama na. I'm just taking a poke at Gwen. Okay. So after birding, it's good to to somehow put your notes into good use. Okay. So aside from yung mga sinabi ni Karen, that the number of species and what species you observe during your birding trip, ang mga importante dyan is yung location, kung saan kayo pumunta ng birding. If you can get the GPS coordinates, that would be good. Take note of the time when you started and ended birding, the date, of course. Weather conditions, it's also important kung if you went out birding na sunny, no maulan, those things matter, okay? And also take note if you see any particular birding behavior, like when nakita nyo meron silang nest, but yung kapag may nesting na info, we try to keep it yung very limited lang or hindi namin sinishare palagi kasi poachers might want to go there and get the birds. Pero yung mga birding behavior, like makikita mo, parang they're displaying mating, and then not mating patterns. So yung breeding patterns or breeding behavior. I remember once dun sa trip namin sa Subic, ngayon lang ako nakakita ng imperial pigeon ba yun? Imperial pigeon yata na yung nag-aakit ng partner. Ang galing. So they dive bomb. Ang galing, from very high, tapos nagda-dive bomb sila. It was my first time to observe that. Tapos yung kasama ko, sinabi niya, that's how they attract mates. It's so yun, tinitake note ko yun. And then also take note of the field marks and some flags. Now I'll show you what field marks are. So dito ngayon sa picture, sa slide, you'll see the Asian golden plover. Yung top picture, that's the non-breeding plumage. So ibig sabihin, Asian golden plovers are migrants to the Philippines. So during from August to March, bumibisita sila. Kapag dating sila ng August, yung itsura nila is yung nasa top picture. So just look normal, just brown, white spots. But come March, or when they're going back to their breeding area, yung itsura niya is nasa baba na. So ibang-iba yung itsura. So we also birders tinitake note rin namin yan kung naka-breeding plumage na ba sila, kasi it's important. It adds to yung value ng birding observations. And then yung isa sa mga kinaka-excite namin when we're looking for when we're looking at migrant birds is yung mga flags. Now, I'm showing you a bar-tailed godwit na may flag. If you can see yung flag niya sa legs. So, kapag nagfa-flagging kasi, the species that are flagged are the ones that are threatened or yung mga critically endangered, kasi minamark yan kung saan sila pumupunta. So, the flags are one way of knowing, or at least tracking kung saan sila pumunta during migration season, para malaman kung saan yung mga areas na dapat i-protect, kasi nga bird populations are declining worldwide because of yung habitat destruction. Now, when we see a flag bird, we get excited kasi we try to take note of the color of the flags and whatever markings ang nasa flag na yan. So, ang way ng pag-flag niyan is from their breeding area, at least, and for our sa Philippines, the breeding areas can be in China and in Russia. So fina-flag sila doon, tapos when they migrate, may migrate down south and up until Australia, umabot sila. Kapag nakita ng birders yan, nire-report namin yan sa mga ibang sa isang global database, or isang organization that's tracking them. So they use that data to track where the birds have been, and tinitingnan rin kung anong sites yun. So if they're critically endangered, we can that information can be used to lobby or protect the species or the areas that they visit. So yun yung mga flags. So yun yung mga ibang observations na kailangan yung i-take note in addition to the species and number of species seen. Okay, so why do we do that? Because birding data matters. On a personal level, na-mention na ni Karen kanina, yung isang term, yung lifer, and then I will introduce you two more terms, the lifeless and the spark bird. So lifer is the first time that you've seen the bird in your life. So I'm sure nakita nyo na lahat yung Maya or yung Eurasian tree sparrow. So nandiyan rin yung mga regular na sa backyard natin na yung yellow-vented bulbul or Philippine pied fantail. So the first time that you see a bird, yun yung lifer nyo. Now, why do we consider or bakit important ang lifer? Kung ikaw ay birder, you try to keep track of the number of birds that you've seen during your birding experience, yung time mo na nagbe-bird watching ka or as a bird watcher. So think of when we do guided trips, or guided bird walks, the way I introduce this, to, especially to kids, it's just like kung naglaro man kayo ng Pokemon Go, yung sa ano, it's like collecting your Pokemon. Okay, na ilalagay nyo sa Pokédex. So, yun. So, out of the 709 species that can be seen in the Philippines, kung nakita nyo na yung Maya, yung yellow-vented bulbul, Philippine pied fantail, you already have 3 lifers in the Philippines. So, yun yung pinaka-goal ng isang birdwatcher. We don't hunt, we don't collect, kumbaga we don't cage species kasi nga they're supposed, it's better to keep them wild. Pero nagbibilang kami ng lifer. So we don't unlike hunters which kills birds tapos dinalagay nila na okay, I've already killed a Philippine duck. We don't kill, we don't shed blood, but we count it na nakita na namin ang Philippine duck. So yun yung nag-a-add yun. So to give you an example, dun sa 709 species, I'm already at 416 sa Philippines. So may mas marami pang birders na mas mataas sa akin, and a lot of birders are already in the club 500, yung 500 pataas. But yun yung pinaka-joy. So those lifers add to your life list. You can have a Philippine life list. You can have a global life list. You can have, sabihin natin, if you birded in Hong Kong, mayroon kang Hong Kong life list. But all of those bird observations add to your life list. So if you're counting, there are about 10,000 species of birds in the world. So ako nasa parang 500 pa lang yata. So I've naka-bird na ako with other birders na nasa 5,000, na nasa 3,500. Ang galing. So alam mo yun, it's amazing to keep track of that, yung mga observations or yung mga birds na nakita nyo na. And then the last term, yung spark bird, it's not really related to the lifer or the life list or the number of species seen. But the spark bird is a term na we use na ito yung nakita mong bird that that started you na, or that made you say, gusto ko talaga mag-bird watching. So pwedeng very rare yan, or very common na parang colored kingfisher, yung na kumbaga namulat na yung mata mo sa bird watching na ang dami palang ibon na pwede makita. Na I always say na kapag nung bata ako, 5 ibon lang yata yung alam ko. So nandiyan yung Maya, yung Philippine eagle, manok, kalapati, tsaka I forgot. So 4 lang siguro. Pero that's because yun lang yung nasa libro. Yun lang yung tinuturo. Wala nagsabi sa akin na may owl sa Pilipinas. Wala sa akin nagsabi na madami makukulay ng ibon sa Pilipinas. But then, when I saw my spark bird is an eastern dash owl. So yun yung nag-start ako na got me curious about bird watching. So that's on a personal level. So you could keep it in your Cattleya notebook. Plugging na naman. Okay. Or, sorry Gwen, or contribute to citizen science. When we say contribute to citizen science, like I said kanina, yung bird populations are declining all over the world. Kaya nga tayo nagkakaroon ng IUCN status na near threatened, critically endangered. It's because we are, scientists worldwide are taking note of the bird population. So, gaano kadami na ba sila? And why are they doing that? Because as we say in the bird club, birds are very good indicators of how good our environment is. So kapag may ibon sa environment natin, ibig sabihin maganda pa yung area natin. And what's good for the birds is good for us humans as well. So kung nandiyan yung mga ibon, okay siya. Ibig sabihin maganda pa yung air quality, may nakakain pa sila. So siguro parang compare it na sa probinsya, tapos compare it to big metropolis like Makati. Wala, konti na lang yung ibang makikita. What you see is urban birds na lang. So it's not really good kasi when the environment is no longer good, the birds can easily fly away. Kaya yun yung mga kaya sila naging good indicators environment. So, and contributing to citizen science is one way of helping those scientists. When we say contribute to citizen science, yung tayong mga birders or our observations can contribute to the scientists to make to know which areas to protect or to draft policies to protect those areas. What we're doing now in the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines is that we're trying to lobby or advocate through citizen science yung mga bird observations namin yung in relations to the Bulacan Airport. Okay, they want to kumbaga reclaim the entire a big land area, pero meron na record doon ng mga critically endangered species na. So that's what we're doing. Okay. So one way to contribute to citizen science is syempre pag nasa notebook lang yan, ang hirap naman yan. Saan isa-submit, di ba? Before we used to do it sa Wild Bird Club na we do yearly report, but it's kind of hard to collect all the data na raw data tapos na manually. But now there is an app called eBird, and I will demo this in a very short way. Na it's now a very good app, and a lot of birders are using it kasi ang dali niyang gamitin. So let me share you my mobile phone screen. Ayan. Okay, so this is my screen. I just tap eBird. Okay, so pagka-tap ko pala, nakalagay na dyan yung date, yung time, tapos I can start a checklist. So I click the checklist, and then dito sa area ko, I'm now in Pangasinan. It already narrows down the possible species that I can see dito sa area ko. It's because marami rin, this is based on yung mga previous reports na rin na mga na-report dito sa area na to. So, ang ginagawa ko lang, it takes, alam mo yun, it takes some guessing away from kung ano ba yung nakita nyo. So, madalas ang nakita ko, so great egret. Pag nakita ko great egret, I just click on the plus sign. So, nakita nyo yan, nagdadagdag na lang yan. It's very easy, tap lang ng tap. Nakita rin ako ng Eastern Cattle Egret dito, tap lang. Yung collared kingfisher. Tapos, after, I just stop track, tapos isasubmit ko lang yan. Don't worry, I will erase this later kasi basura tong data na to. Okay, so continue. Alam niyo kung nasaan na ako, no? Okay, so yan na yung submission ko for tonight. Kunwari, dummy data. Now, that all goes into the eBird database, which scientists have access to. So nakasubmit na tayo. But one nice thing about eBird at kung bakit palagi naming pinopromote to use. Teka lang. How do I stop? Paano ko stop sharing dito? Stop sharing na. Okay. So this then goes to Okay. Can you see this na? Yung eBird ko. Okay. So all my data nakapupunta dito sa which I can easily access. So nakita nyo dito, for the Philippines, meron na akong 416 species. It's easier to keep track of my life list. So pwede ko mag-change ng region, yung sa world. mabagal mag-load. So, but I'll show you my Philippine life list. So, eto ngayon, so natatrack lahat, especially kung kailan yung date kung una nakita. My last lifer was the Pied Avoset sa Tansa na Botas. And then, I have a record na what was my first, which is the Paddy Field Pipit in Masantol Fish Ponds. Yun. So it's a very nice app. It's helping birders worldwide. So ito yung sinasabi namin sa mga guided bird walks. If you really are interested in bird watching or get hooked into bird watching, open an eBird account and mas madali siyang it's more fun. It's becoming more fun to bird lalo na pag ano, especially if you're a data freak. Ako medyo data freak, mas marami pang data freak na ano sa club members namin. Okay, so that's my end. Gwen? Yeah.
All right. So we're done?
Yeah,
okay,
we're done.
So pre-birding, during birding, and after birding. So now let's take some questions. I think, is John here? John, there's somebody who asked a question you want to answer?
Yeah. Ano nga ba yun? Yung ano, bakit walang bird book?
Ikaw na sumagot.
Ako na sasagot. Normally, you would expect na may bird book sa essentials ng ng mga dadalhin ninyo. Pero the thing is, even without the bird book, you can enjoy bird watching. So what do you do if you don't have a bird book? So just take down the notes of what you see. So kunya may nakita kang ibon. Sabi mo lang doon na it looks like an oriole, or it looks like a rooster, or a pigeon. Yung kasi yung yung di ba sinabi ni Karen kanina yung GIS, general impression. The general impression is kung ano sa tingin mo yung dating ng ibon, meaning mukha siyang manok, mukha siyang egret, ganon. May general type ka na naiisip. So isusulat mo lang yung mga yon. And then pagkatapos mo mag bird watching, you can consult somebody with a book. Pero of course, mas maganda kung meron ka ng book on hand. But for some people, lalo na kung beginner ka, having a book is actually a hindrance kasi bago ka pa makapag-observe ng mas marami doon sa ibon, nando ka lang sa libro, you stay on the book. So nawala ang attention sa ibon. So okay lang na walang book for at least especially if you're just looking for if you're looking at common birds, okay lang 'yon. 'Yon. Pwede mo siyang balikan. Ayun, sige. Dagdagan ko lang. For example, I started bird watching 1996, and we had this book, the DuPont Philippine Birds. It was a big book, and it's really old, and most of the birds are brown. As in, hindi mo ma-identify kung sino siya doon. So, I would go to Makiling once a month, and I'll see birds. Ginagawa ko lang, ninonote down ko sila. And then, something like 5 years later, lumabas yung Kennedy guide na pinakita ni Gwen. I got mine after that, after 5 years, and then I went back to my notebooks and identify ko kung ano yung mga nakita kong ibon after 5 years using that guide. Yon. So hindi siya essential talaga.
Thank you. All right. There are other questions, but they've been answered in the chat. So,
I think there's a related question dun sa bird book na yan, or kasi it's Sherry Garcia is asking, can the eBird app also identify birds, or is there such an app or resource if she doesn't have a guidebook? Merong ibang to answer your first question, eBird doesn't help you identify birds kung ano yung nakita nyo. There are other apps for that, yung Naturalist Guide yata. hindi kasi ako gumagamit, but there are other apps. But ang para yata magamit yon is that you need to take a picture of the object that you want to identify. So it's useful for trees, it's useful for insects. Pero kung ibon yan, hindi ka
Malabo.
makakalapit na tapos pipicturean mo siya ng ano. Kasi bago ka lumapit, nakalipad na yan. So I would have to refer to what John said. Take note of yung general shape, kung egret ba siya or mukha siyang kingfisher or mukhang maya, and then you look for other sources na to help you identify. Ganun ako nag-start na mag-bird watching. Take down lang notes, tapos wala pa akong guidebook nun. I always refer to the WBCP website, yung luma pa. Tapos alam mo, hanap lang ako ng hanap. Then alam mo yun, second guessing lang. Tapos, more often than not, siguro mga 80%, medyo tama naman yung nakikita kong ibon. Unless it's really rare, yung akala kong nakita ko, tapos i-correct na lang ako ng other older members than me. So, okay lang. Okay lang kahit na-correct.
Speaking of notes, no?
Can I add?
Yeah.
Go, Karen. Sige. Karen first.
Sige. No, because with the age of internet, sobrang daling mag-search. You know, if you just search bluebird, Manila Bay, ganyan. You just, your observations, may lalabas. Malalaman nyo within one day. And then we have groups on bird watching, our webpage. It's so easy now compared to like what John said when he started. Wala pang Google nun, no?
Meron na, pero walang kwenta pa dun.
Manong John. You were about to say, John?
That old? No Google? You're that old, John?
Oo, unfortunately, 1996 ako nag-start no?
Oo, kasama pa si John gumawa ng Google Hindi lang.
Ang email ko kasama sa mga first batches of email ng Pilipinas. Ayun, I was going to add, when you take down notes, kasi di ba nipakita si Karen ng notes, no? And then meron siyang drawing doon. Tapos sabi niya parang nahihiya siya sa drawing. The notebook is not there for the art. It's there for you to take down notes. So don't be pressured to come up with great works of art. It's not the purpose of a notebook. Kahit na gaano kapangit yan, just draw a bird. Yan, perfect. Just draw a bird, however you saw it, and then add arrows, description, color, behavior, ganun lang. Eventually, pag binalikan mo siya, magigets mo kung ano yun. And that's what's important. Hindi yung work of art. Yan.
All right. Well, we have, I think, two people who asked about the binoculars. So MJ sent an article there on the chat. But John, you want to just answer about the binoculars really quickly?
Quick. What are the specifications for recommended binoculars? Yung quick lang kasi the article very manggaling ng article yan. Yeah, complete.
Yeah.
Sino?
Sino sasagot? Ikaw na.
John.
Ako na? Anong specifications? Normally
8
by 40 ang
42, di ba?
8 by 40, 8 by 42.
Pareho. Okay.
Hindi naman magkaiba yun, pero more or less pareho lang.
So those are the two numbers that you will see. Kapag bumibili kang binoculars, makita nyo palagi it's 8. The first number is 8x tapos followed
40,
by a double digit number. So ang sinasabi ni John is look for something na 8, yun yung power of magnification, and then yung second number would be yung opening sa dulo, yung 42.
How bright it would be. So normally sa bird watching, you use an 8 by 40 or 8 by 30, or kung medyo adventurous ka, 10 by 50. Pero on the average, standard is 8 by 40.
There's another question here.
Yes.
How much do you usually spend on birding trips? Minimal.
Sagot ako.
Sige.
sige, si
Oo.
John.
I've been in the club for a long time. No? I once one of the few started this. Ang requirement ko, even way back, 500 pesos per trip. Pero it doesn't work now anymore. So mga 1.5, mas ano na yun, malaki na yun. That's
Okay.
kasama na yung ambag, kung may ambag.
Yeah. Do take note na yung sinasabi na budget ni John is for out of town trips. Okay, kasi ang birding sa UP libre. Ang pamasahe
lang,
konti lang.
Tsaka Rodix.
Ang fishball 10 piso, okay ka na, di ba? Tapos ang taho siguro may 10 piso. Ang mahal doon ngayon yung dirty ice cream 20.
Ayo, 25.
25 na.
Noon pa, nagtuturo pa ako. Kasing mahal niya ang FIC.
Okay, so it really depends on where you're going. Yeah, Karen, you wanted to add something?
Usually, when, for example, our club organizes a out-of-town trip, estimated budget is given because people, of course, have to budget, have to schedule, and have to budget. So like me, nung nag-umpisa pa lang ako mga 10 years ago, may Google na nun. That's really a big consideration yung budget. Kasi kung hindi ko abot, sorry na lang. But later on, nung nakakapag-ipon na ako, I was able to join like out of town, like Mindanao, and even yung bird fairs that we participate out of the country with bird watching. So it really depends. But I've been to many trips na wala akong masyadong ginastos kasi sponsored. Pagka somebody, like an organization, asks us to do some guiding or survey, so more or less it's pretty much covered. And slots get taken up quite fast. Pero right now, walang nangyayaring ganun because of the pandemic. So we're hoping for the vaccines.
Yeah, tsaka for ako pag sa club trip kasi we go as a group and we share expenses, lalo na yung travel expenses namin para lighter naman on everybody's budget. It's good. It's a nice, aside from sharing expenses, masaya mag-birding with a group. Lalo na pag wala kang nakitang ibon.
Can I also add, we don't usually stay in fancy schmancy hotels.
Yes.
Like, usually basic, na yung may maayos na CR, gano'n.
Yeah.
Tapos minsan, dorm pa, magkakasama kami sa isang room para matipid.
It's because hindi naman kasi kami natutulog eh. We don't spend time sa hotel. Parang we're out at 4 a.m. We go back at 10 dahil mainit lang, magla-lunch kami. Tapos we're out again at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Tapos pag nag-aawling kami, babalik na lang kami ng alas 9, alas 10, tulog na lang. So, bakit mo pa kailangan ng may swimming pool?
Huwag niyo kalimutan yung beer.
And yun yung importante. The hotel must have beer. Okay, and yes.
Yan o, meron dyan.
Okay, this is a good question from Sihawe. I don't know if you're Sir or Miss Sihawe. Where's the best place or strategic place to conduct birding in a closed forest or in an open forest? My purpose is to have more birds to observe. Who'd like to answer the question?
Depends on the experience. If you want a good variety, go to the forest. But if you want to see them easily, in an open area would be best.
I
Parks,
agree.
yan. For example, pag meron kaming guided
perfect
birding
example
trip,
yun.
we don't bring people to the forest. Kasi okay, you have a lot of birds there, pero
more spectacular birds siguro.
More spectacular, pero not everybody will be able to see the birds. But if you bring them to a park, In a regular environment, no, kahit sa residential neighborhood, you'll have about 10 species. Now, if you bring them to a park setting, you'll have more than 10 species, and it's easier for people to see. So if you just want to see birds, doon ka sa or sige, kung gusto nating marami talaga, go to mud flats, yun dami.
Yeah.
Pero mag-i-enjoy ka ba doon kasi pare-pareho silang brown or gray? As in, ang daming species, ang dami nila, as in, libo-libo, pero you can't even identify one. Hindi ka rin mag-i-enjoy.
I'll just add to yung open forest, closed forest. Personally, medyo mas mahirap yung closed. Lalo na kung old growth forest, masyado silang malaki. Tapos yung mga birds na maliliit, sobrang hirap makita sa medyo madilim yung canopy kasi sarado. So, malaki yung chance na puro herd lang compared to open forest. I think Mike has something to say.
Yeah, Mike is raising his hand.
The person who was asking the question is from DENR.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he or she needs it for biodiversity monitoring. So, to see more birds, probably within the forest, for me, I try to go to a place na may ravine, or if there's a clearing or at the edge of the forest, it's easier. But for biodiversity monitoring, you really have to go inside.
Yes. Transect.
Kung nasa edge ka ng forest, mas mabilis mo makita and you get more familiar with the identification of the birds. Then when you go in, it's easier for you na. Because you learn to observe the behavior or usually where they are found in the forest, like nasa taas ba or nasa middle story or nasa baba.
Yeah. Si Hawe, if you could clarify kung why are you asking that? Kasi ang interpretation ko naman is they might want to raise awareness about bird watching or the bird species. Then if that's your purpose, mas maganda sa open. And like what John said, sa mud flats ang maganda kasi easily you could see siguro mga more than 10 species na madali. For our guided bird walks, we usually do it in UP kasi nga not only is it open space but it's easy to access to the general public. Usually ang numbers yata namin is around 12 to 20 species of birds na alam mo yun, for a beginner bird watcher, talagang na sanay lang makakita ng maya. Spectacular na yung 20, di ba? Na nasa loob ka na ng you're just in a city. So if you could clarify your question, we'd be happy to answer it better. Okay, meron pa ba sa bird calls? Nasagot na. Okay.
I'll add pala sa first time bird.
Okay.
Usually, ang tinuro sa amin dati ni James McCarthy, the founder of the club, was try bring them to see mga 10 species, okay na yon. Just one species na seen very well, okay na. Because if you show them so much on their first trip, they won't remember anything afterwards. But make sure there are one or two which are seen very well para mag-ano sa utak nila. I remember my first trip to Candaba, when I got off the car, there was a whole flock of chestnut munya. Then we saw a lot, and the last was, there was a gray heron surrounded by ducks. So hanggang ngayon, yun na lang naalala ko. All the rest, I forgot na.
There's a question from Mylene. Is the club doing surveys? By that, I guess she means bird survey? Of what?
Mylene? Yeah. We're doing surveys for the Asian, we're helping the DNR do the water bird census during every January in different wetlands. But aside from that, we sometimes get requests from power plant companies or golf courses to identify birds in their properties.
Is there like a charge or a fee for for requesting the club to do surveys, or what are the requirements for the owner of the resort or the place
Mhm.
if he or she would request for a survey of the property for the for the birds living in that area?
Usually we do not charge anything, but
Uh-huh.
we want to make sure that we don't have to spend for anything.
Okay,
If,
okay,
if kung pwede, you shoulder the transportation or at least give us gas allowance.
okay,
Or if it's overnight, then free board and lodging, ganon.
okay, okay, okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kasi ang
Yeah,
point naman nun, ano eh, we just want to go
yeah,
bird watching.
yeah.
And if we're going bird watching for free.
Start charging, it will become like a business, di ba?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for our guests,
Every time.
yeah, for our guests, I think we should we'd like to tell na the Wild Bird Club of the Philippines is run by volunteers. We're a non-profit organization, so we're not doing anything to earn a profit. It's merely to raise awareness about bird watching and the conservation of bird species in the Philippines.
Walang sumusweldo sa amin.
Yeah, wala kaming paid staff. So, alam mo yun, yeah, if we can go bird watching for free, winner.
Okay, there's a question on FB Live. Have you encountered, it's by Jose Casela. Have you encountered illegal poachers at the time when you went birding? And how did you react? Ano po ba ang inaasahan? Like, oriented po ba on how to respond or report?
Very good question. Sige, sino sasagot? Galing. Yun lang sagot ko. Sino sasagot? Hindi.
Not me.
No, yes,
For hunting.
yeah, we've encountered a lot of poachers tsaka yung mga hunters niyan. It's very tricky on how to interact with them kasi especially hunters, kapag may baril yan, hindi mo na alam kung ano gagawin, di ba? So ang una namin ginagawa is we take photos, evidence of their presence and of their equipment. Tapos we report it to the concerned offices, like yung mga local government offices yung una, kasi syempre meron silang environment office dyan. We report them to DNR. For poachers, there have been instances where our members have yung engaged with them. May isa akong natatanda na incident na sa Kailabne, which are that Mount Palay-Palay. Yeah. So may yung na cage na ibon na yun? Limokon yun eh. White-eared brown dove yata. If I'm not
We had
mistaken.
a lawyer with us.
We had a lawyer with us. So
that time that we saw the caged bird.
Kasama ka pala yan, Karen. Okay.
There were a number of birds, yeah.
So we explain na bawal yung ginagawa nila, and then we try to talk to them na pakawalan na. So it's very tricky, but yes, we do report them. We try our very best in within limits to engage them and convince them to let the birds go. Pero syempre, yung safety is our utmost pa rin priority. Kasi baka mamaya hindi na ka makabalik pagbaba ng bundok eh. Yeah.
Syempre, konti lang yung mga bird watchers.
Yeah.
Tayo pwedeng mabawasan.
Yeah, pero I think yung yung presence namin or yung presence ng bird watching ngayon is getting yung track. So kapag nakikita na kami, nagtatago na rin sila, and I think yung awareness na rin about protection of species tsaka yung laws about wildlife is now mas kalat na. So they're very, very careful, and siguro limited na lang. We have engaged known figures na rin in the past. kung may magkukwento si Mike yun, pero hindi ako magkukwento. Pero yeah, we've engaged very public, well-known figures na who have been hunting. We have educated them, and we reported in the proper authorities na.
You can also report to DNR Biodiversity Management Bureau Facebook. Di ba, ang dali na? They recently posted something to this effect that you can reach out to DNR BMB, send them a private message. Just, share evidence. Kasi may marami ng Facebook groups ngayon na nagbebenta ng mga illegal wildlife.
Yun. So yeah, please do your part. If you encounter them, report nyo na lang. Report nyo na sa DNR, yung mga ganyan. It's for everyone, RA 9147. Tama,
yes.
RA 91, it's illegal.
Yes.
RA
9147.
Yeah, it's illegal to
Wildlife Conservation
hunt,
and Protection,
catch, or own any wildlife in the Philippines. Period. Wala na.
Or if you have friends or relatives who keep wildlife, convince them not to. Tell them.
Okay.
Also, please don't buy to save, buy and release. It's highly discouraged because it will encourage more poaching. It's better to report to the authorities rather than bibiling ko na lang tas papakawalan ko. Kasi yung magpo-poach saka magbebenta, baliwala sa kanila kung i-release mo eh. Kumita na sila, but it will encourage them to poach more and more in the wild if people buy. So, wag na tayong bumili or discourage friends not to purchase illegal wildlife. Not just birds.
Follow up kay si Hawe, o yung DNR of DNR Region 12. It's related to the biodiversity monitoring system, Mike. And yung purpose niya being in DNR is familiarization of birds identification for law enforcement because we have the sites category. Yon. So, yeah. I guess for monitoring, you really have to do a transect. Hindi ka mamimili ng area. Whether it's just open or within the forest, you have to do a transect and the whole.
Okay, so there's a question from Ria Vanessa. Can you recommend a birding site for a beginning birder? I go birding on Sundays with my husband and our 9-month-old baby.
Saan sila?
Nasaan sila?
Where are they based?
Kasi Facebook Live ito eh.
Yeah.
It's a question FB Live, so I'm not sure.
Sa Manila.
Sige, kung sa Manila na lang, let's assume na nasa Manila.
UP Diliman.
Open na ba? Open na ba ang UP?
Yes.
I think they're still closed.
Open na.
Open na.
For jogging and biking.
Okay.
Pero hindi.
Bawal ang bird watching.
Mas madaling payagan ng bird
From
watching.
Pasig daw siya, Pasig.
From Pasig.
Okay.
Pasig River.
Seriously, Pasig River. Oh, ito seryoso.
Daming terns, egrets, other water birds.
Yeah.
Park.
But
Pasig.
sa BGC, sa Greenway Park, because people walk to work, but they're also like joggers and people who exercise. It's social distancing naman doon, so you can go to the Greenway Linear Park in BGC. That's pretty near Pasig. Pwede din.
Pasig.
Actually, sa Ortigas may woodpeckers. Or anywhere there's good vegetation, trees, observe lang.
Yeah, open parks is
urban.
I'm not very familiar sa kung saan yung mga open area sa Pasig.
Actually, that's a problem with Metro Manila when we started, di ba, John? There are very few open parks in the whole metropolis. That's why we started out in cemeteries.
Ayun pala. There you go.
Cemeteries.
There are few people in cemeteries. The birds are safer there.
They are parks.
And it's very quiet. Alam mo yun, you could hear actually the bird chirps. Oh, well, good yun sa cemetery. Wala Or any, baka if you live in subdivision, yung park na may acacia tree, baka yung, I think,
sa ano? Ano to? Valley Verde.
Kaya mo yan.
Yun, Valley Verde subdivision.
kung
Ang dami.
makapasok sila.
Kung
Yeah,
makakapasok ka doon.
Yun. But
Ang
yun nga,
dami doon.
I think we have to I think people have to yung na-realize ko rin na you just have to be aware kasi nandyan sila. I remember my first time bird watching, si Mike nag-guide eh. Binigyan niya ako ng binoculars. I was skeptical at first. I was really skeptical at first. The first thing that I spotted with my binoculars was yung avocado fruit na sa Nigs. Kasi may avocado tree doon. Uy! Avocado! Tapos, nung sinabi na, may Philippine pygmy woodpecker. Alam mo yun, weh. But yeah, there was a woodpecker. And alam mo, I vividly remember that moment na, okay, sige, meron palang ibang ibon dito sa UP. And I studied in UP for 8 years at wala akong nakita kundi Maya.
Si Arne has something to say. Arne, would you like to?
Yeah, please contribute to the
about the
monitoring.
Methods. Arne.
Well, I found it very exciting to sit and listen to all of you for now 1 hour and 15 minutes. Exciting also because maybe some of you cannot really imagine how it was to bird here. Jonathan was mentioning it a little bit, but we were, and we still are too few, but we were so few. So not having a good field guide, not having an internet that really worked, not having all these things that you take for granted now, like eBird, for which I would like to say, because it has not been mentioned, that the club has an arrangement with Cornell University, which is the owner of eBird, that annually the Philippine data goes back to the club. So we still have a gigantic task to add, that's at least our ambition, to add additional records, because not all records can go into eBird. There can be ownership problems. Let me just mention that the PAMBI of Tubata doesn't want to just give out the data. So if you want to add that to the annual list, you have kindly to ask them and they will always say yes. That's just one example. I also listened carefully to when you discussed the illegal hunting, which still is rampant in many areas of your country. But somehow I was expecting that you maybe had mentioned a little bit more clear to the listeners that the ears and the eyes, that there are more and more people, whether with cameras or binoculars, out in these areas, also somehow hopefully can help a little bit the areas where the birds are living. The last example, Tansa in Navotas. Mike mentioned it was difficult to find places. And among the first places, because, you know, I'm maybe a little bit more happy in the wetland and in the green belt, as I call it, in the deep forest where I can't see much. So I, together with a lot of volunteers and also scientists, have actually traversed all 200 kilometers of the coastline of Manila Bay. It had taken me several years. And it started very humbly because I'm living at the bay, that we went down and we found what is now everybody knows as Paranake Wetland Park. And I would say, had it not been for the bird watchers, you would not have Paranake Wetlands Park today. Likewise, we pushed, we thought successfully, that the presidential proclamation 1412A that made this park possible, this Ramsar site, this protected area possible, had a very smart little item, an item which said that each and every of the provinces in Manila Bay should have similar critical areas. And had DNR done the homework, we would not have seen this disastrous destruction of Manila Bay, which never ends. And Tansa was the second site with great difficulties that we found. It took me 3 visits, banging my head into buildings and walls, climbing over walls to figure out how to get to Isla Pulu, where I got so excited. You know, at that time, there was also plenty of Chinese egrets. It's actually the site in Manila Bay with most. We could have up to 90. And all the beautiful water birds, everybody is so happy about that we found many years ago. But DNR didn't do their part. And PIA didn't do their part. So now you will see it reclaimed. But had it not been highlighted by us more than 15, 20 years ago, I think you would probably not even have had the Tansa tree park. And so going back to that example, across the country, I guarantee you in 99% of all cases, it's the bird watching that makes a lot of initiatives. And it is the bird watching that put people in what you say in the spotlight when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or makes rattles with those developers that don't give a millimeter for birds and habitats, whether they are the ones building bridges or building highways through forest or whatever destruction that unfortunately continues. So my learning here, bird watching in the Philippines, almost since Aguinaldo was young, is the love for birds, the excitement about all these beautiful birds. Even you just think that you went out and you saw a few species, you put them rightfully in your notes. If you really burn for these birds, it is unavoidable. You want to share these information with other people. And this way it tiptoes into, into media, into news and so forth. And slowly but surely, maybe not in my lifetime, it will be better, easier to protect more of these birds. So there is still full space for a full heart of love for birds. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Arnie, for that. All right, I don't see any more questions. So it's 9:27. I guess it's about time for us to wrap up. Okay, I'd like to thank Arnie for bringing that up. I'd like to say that bird watching is more than just the birds. Sure, they're nice, they're aesthetically pleasing to look at, but guys, you have to look beyond it. Birds are indicators of the health of an environment. You have no birds, that means your water is dirty, there's no fish, there are no trees, there are no plants, there are no flowers, and that directly affects us people. So what's good for the birds, definitely, it's good for us people. That's why we want to protect the birds. The ultimate goal, hindi naman ibon lang eh. Kaya minsan ang ayoko lang is minsan sinasabing hanggang ibon lang kayo. No, we are not. We want to save the environment. We are against this reclamation that is not even scientifically based anymore. I don't want to go on and on about it, but I'd like to thank all of the people who watched. I'd like to encourage you to please mag-birdwatch din kayo, contribute to citizen science. You have the club, you can access us anytime. You can ask questions. We have our public Kapihan once every month, but you can reach the Wild Bird Club in the Facebook group. So thank you to everybody. Jobs, you have anything to add? Oh yes, please turn on your videos for our group picture. Graduation time, because you stayed until 9:30. Graduation picture. Okay, who's taking the picture, Jobs? Are you?
MJ, can you do it? Medyo... I'll try.
Gabrielle, Mylene, is that Ainol? Ainol? Okay. Smile. Ikaw na magbilang, MJ.
Brian, Gabriel, Mary. Smile. Again. Parang hindi ko mo... Okay. Okay. So wait, just to be sure. Teka. Smile. Oops. Bumalawkin ako. Ano? Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
For our next public kapihan, coming on may Christmas special kami. Siyempre, December na. And do visit yung website namin, birdwatch.ph. Our Facebook page is Birdwatch Philippines. We have a community page, Birdwatch Philippines Community. We have our Instagram, Wild Bird Club of the Philippines. Okay. So thank you for all for attending and good night.